Hi everyone, welcome back to the TechNet vlog. I'm excited to be back. And yes, after a short break, we've come back with so many new ideas on how to support our Scrum Masters, our business analysts, project managers, prepare for the exams and also become better practitioners on the field. Okay. So if what we've shared in the past they've been of good use to you, please comment, like, and share. So today we're going to look at requirement life cycle management, which is in the chapter 5 of the BABOK. So we're going to look at the summary kind of high level. Then we're going to look at BABOK. Then we're going to go into this summary sheet again that we created, okay, just to help you remember. So, requirement life cycle management, which is the third knowledge area. So, under that, you have the trace requirement, you have the maintain requirement, you have the prioritize requirement, you have the assess requirement changes, then you have approve requirement. So, under each one, we are going to look at the input, element, output. Okay. So let's dive into BABOK. Now, requirement lifecycle management. So the requirement lifecycle management knowledge area describes the tasks that business analysts perform in order to manage and maintain requirements and design information from inception to retirement. So at this stage, you as a business analyst, you go through this knowledge area or the activities and tasks in order to, manage and maintain requirements and design and all the information you've collected from inception to finish. Okay, so how do you manage everything and as well as update everything, maintain it? So these tasks describe establishing meaningful relationships between related requirements and design. So you're looking at, okay, what connects this requirement and the other? What is the relationship between the requirement and the design? Assessing changes to requirement. Are there changes to this requirement and as well the design? When changes are proposed, like when changes are proposed, you are looking at, okay, let's see how this changes what we have in the scope, okay, and analyzing and gaining consensus on changes. So at a point you need to get everyone on the table, okay, to analyze and also come to the in the middle and meet yourself, okay. So the purpose of requirement life cycle management is to ensure that business stakeholder and solution requirement and design are aligned to one another and that the solution implements them. So it's just for the business, the stakeholders, and all involved to make sure that everyone we are aligned when it comes to requirements and design before we go forward. Okay. So it involves a level of control over requirements and over how requirements will be implemented in actual solution to be constructed and delivered. So you want to have that control over how things are decided over requirements so that you at the end of the day you make sure that whatever is being produced or whatever is being implemented is what is signed off on, is what you guys have agreed on, okay? So it also helps to ensure that business analysis information is available for future use. Yes. The requirement life cycle begins with the representation of a business need as a requirement. Yes. So you start with what you have as the business need. Continues through the development of a solution, then it continues through when you develop a solution and ends when a solution and the requirements that represent it are retired. So when you retire your requirement. So know that you are trying to take decisions, you are trying to put control measures over the requirements and stuff like that. You've not started designing and stuff, okay? You are looking at the requirement at this stage. So don't be carried away. The management of requirements does not end once a solution is implemented. Yes, once you go live, it doesn't mean that, oh, we hands off, okay? Throughout the life of a solution, requirements continue to provide value when they are managed appropriately. So, this is telling, that's why I say, okay, just take it as the title says, requirement life cycle management, and that is just what this thing says. So it is not, it doesn't have to do, oh, hands up when you go live with the requirement, but throughout the life of the requirement, okay, till you retire it, till you say, okay, do you know what, we are phasing this product or this requirement or this whatever solution. Do you understand? We're taking up another solution. That is when you retire it and you know that you maybe something more modern, okay, is coming into place. But as far as that requirement is in use, you have to be on it. Within the requirement life cycle management knowledge area, the concept of a life cycle is separate from a methodology or process used to govern business analysis work. So telling you that within the life cycle of your of this knowledge area, the concept of a life cycle is separate. So when it comes to the life cycle of that requirement, it is separate from a methodology, maybe approach or process or used to govern business analysis work. So telling you that you managing the life cycle of a particular requirement of a particular product is entirely different, okay, from your business analysis, stores and all that. So the product or the it has its own life cycle which you have to adhere to. So life cycle refers to the existence of various phases or states that requirements pass through as part of any change. Requirements may be in multiple states at one time. So let's look at this requirement lifecycle management diagram. So the states listed here are not intended to be a comprehensive listing. That is what BABOK would always tell you. You can always think out of the box. So you have the assess requirement. Is it a yes or is it a no? And you're bringing this forward. So if it's a yes, it goes through approval or consensus. Then afterwards, if it's you get a yes or a no, see what happens. So if it's a yes, when it comes to approvals, you now manage it. You trace, you maintain, you prioritize it. But if it's a no, just like it is a no when it comes to assessing it, you now go back to potential requirement. It's a potential requirement, but you go back to assessing it again. Okay. So the requirement life cycle management knowledge area includes the following tasks. Just like we mentioned when we started, trace requirements. So you have to trace your requirements. So you at this stage you analyze and it analyzes and maintains a relationship between requirements, designs, so solution components and other work products for impact analysis, coverage and allocation. So you are looking at, that is why I always say just take it with the title trace. When you're tracing something, you're trying to look at the relationship, okay? And maybe for example, you meet a requirement or you meet a particular requirement under a business need, and they say, okay, we want this to call this at this time, and there's another requirement that, or maybe when you were analyzing the document that were provided to you for this need or for this project, you notice that you came across that same thing here or even somewhere in your project. And if it's maybe somewhere in your project, you can other projects you've done, you can go back and refer back to that and know that if there is any relationship, if there is, maybe that would be of good use to you in this project. So that's why they say trace requirements. Now, when you are done tracing, you now maintain requirements. Here you ensure that requirements and designs are accurate and current throughout the life cycle and facilitates you reuse where appropriate. So you are trying to make sure that what you have is accurate. Okay. Prioritize requirements. So when you traced, you've maintained, you now prioritize requirements. You're now calling your stakeholders to the table. Okay, which one would give you the minimum viable, like meet your need. Okay, so where do we start? How do we start? Even the developers are involved. Okay, everyone is involved. So you now assesses the value, urgency and risk associated with the particular requirement and design to ensure that analysis and all delivery work is done on the most important ones at any given time. Okay, you don't start from anywhere, you start from somewhere, and there are risks involved. Okay, is this urgent? What value will this give us at the end of the day? Assess requirement changes, evaluate new and changing stakeholder requirements to determine if they need to be acted on within the scope of of a change. So, like, do we have any changes? So you evaluate those new changes, how it will impact what you already have, okay, or even the scope. Approve requirement. Oh, at this point, oh, we've done due diligence. Yes, works with stakeholders involved in the governance process to reach approval and agreement on requirements and designs. Now, the core concept model in requirement lifecycle management. So the business analysis core concept model describes the relationship among the six core concepts. The following tables, okay, we're just telling us what this is all about. So let's look at the core concept, and then during requirement life cycle management, the business analyst does this. Okay. So when it comes to the core concept, that is change, the act of transformation in response to a need, the business analysts manage how proposed changes to requirements and design are evaluated during an initiative. Need, a problem or opportunity to be addressed, the business analyst trace, prioritize, and maintain requirements to ensure that the need is met. Solution, a specific way of satisfying one or more needs in a context. So at this point, the business analyst trace requirements and design to solution components to ensure that the solution satisfies the need. So that means, like, you're making sure that, okay, what we are proposing will satisfy our need. Okay. Stakeholder, a group or individual with a relationship to the change, the need, or the solution. So the business analysts work closely with the key stakeholders to maintain understanding, agreement, and approval of requirements and design. Value, the worth, importance, or usefulness of something to a stakeholder within a context. So the business analyst maintains requirements for reuse to extend value beyond the current initiative. So context, the circumstances that influence are influenced by and provide understanding of change. Then the business analyst analyze the context to support tracing and prioritization activities. So looking at these requirement lifecycle input and output. So for input, you have the requirement, okay? You have the designs, you have the proposed change, you have the requirements verified. So the tags under it, just like we mentioned, trace, you're tracing, you're maintaining, you're prioritizing, you're assessing requirement changes, you're also approving requirements. Then the output is requirements trace, design trace, requirements maintain, requirement prioritize, design prioritize, requirement change assessment, design change assessment, requirements approved, designs approved. This is just like going on and on and on. So now let's look at our summary, okay, so that we go over this quickly again. So the requirement lifecycle management is one of the knowledge areas defined in the BABOK by IIBA. Okay, so it describes the activities and tasks that business analysts perform to manage and maintain requirements and design information from their initial creation through their retirement. So, in simple terms, the RLCM ensures that all requirements and designs are properly documented, okay, tracked, updated, and aligned with business objectives throughout the project lifecycle. So you, as the business analyst, you at this stage, you make sure that whatever you do is properly documented. You're tracking, you're updating, just in case there are changes, and make sure that everyone is aligned, and not just everyone. The requirement is aligned with the business objective, okay? Not just the business objective, that of the firm or the company or the organization. The purpose of requirement lifecycle management is to ensure that business, stakeholder, solution, and transition requirements and designs are aligned to one another, and that the solution implemented meets the business need at the end of the day. It helps maintain the traceability, integrity, and consistency of requirements as they evolve over time. So telling you that, like, for example, when you are trying to implement something and you have that product, they are trying to tell you this is what you would do as the product or requirement lives on. This is how you manage it. This is how you make sure that maybe that's your website. You manage it. You make sure that it's you update every change. All the new stuff that come to you. You try as much as possible to align with everyone and stuff like that. So This is just discussing that. Okay. The life cycle stages of tasks according to BABOK. So the first is you trace the requirements. So why do you actually trace requirements? To establish and maintain the relationship between requirement, design, solution, components, and other artifacts. This helps understand the impact of the changes and ensures alignment. So you are tracing to, look at so many things at the same time, just to also make sure that as well how this would impact whatever you're doing. So your key output will be your traceability matrix. Now, the second task is when you are maintaining requirements. You are now trying to make sure that requirements are accurate because you have traced it, you have tried to look at the relationship. So at this point, you're now making sure that what you have is accurate and is current. That is why you are tracing as well, and available throughout their life cycle. So nothing is redundant, nothing is like, oh, this thing doesn't work. I think this was used in how many ages ago? It won't work. We can't plug it into the system. Okay. This involves updating and reusing them when appropriate. So your key output here will be maintain and reusable requirements. So the third one is prioritize requirements. So you've traced, you've maintained. So now you want to look at where do we start from? So ranks, you are ranking requirements in order of importance, value, or urgency. For is it P1, P2? Is it must have, should have, would have, must go? So prioritizing helps with resource allocation, decision making, and release, so that you even know who will be available. Some people may not be available. So when they are not going to be available, you put their task first before others in a way. Okay, that is after you must have aligned. So your key output here will be prioritize requirements. So, and then you now assess requirement changes. So you have maintained, you have traced, you have maintained, you prioritize. There will be change. There could be changes. Okay. So you are now trying to assess requirement changes. So you evaluate proposed changes to requirements to understand their impact on business objectives, and so maybe it's even impact on your stakeholders and solution scope. Okay, so your main output here will be change assessment. Then approve requirements. When you've done your due diligence, obtain agreement and sign off from stakeholders that requirements and designs are acceptable and ready for implementation. So the main key output here is approved requirement. So know that so this would help you as well, detailed explanation of each task. So let's just run through this as quickly as possible. So for trace requirements, you are linking requirements to other requirements, designs and solution components. So also the purpose is to manage dependencies and analyze the impact of change. An example is a high-level business requirement is linked to its supporting stakeholder and system requirements. So now telling you that it's not only tracing it to a system, also someone who brought in the idea as well. Okay. Now, maintain requirements. You're trying to keep requirement up to date, accurate as the project evolves. So the purpose is to ensure consistency and availability for future reference or reuse. Example is when a regulatory policy changes, related requirements must be updated. Yes. So prioritize requirements. You are trying to determine the relative importance of requirements. Okay. So the purpose is to help stakeholders focus on delivering the highest value first. So an example would be using must-have method. Okay. Must have, should have, could have, won't have. Then assess requirement changes. You're trying to evaluate the implication of any proposed change. So at this stage, you're trying to ensure that only beneficial and feasible changes are approved. And a good example is assessing whether adding a new feature increases cost or affects deadline. You're looking at risk. Then you go on to approve your requirements. And that is getting approval from your stakeholders, agreement, to ensure shared understanding and commitment. Example is sign off on final requirement. Input, okay, output overview. So the input output overview. So elicitation requirements, design business objectives. As form of output, you have traced, prioritized, maintained, approved, and approved requirements. Says stakeholder feedback, change request, you have change assessment, update traceability. Just trying to tell you that like the main input output. Okay. So what is the benefit of requirement lifecycle management? It's just for you to ensure, it ensures alignment between business goal and implemented solutions, also provide transparency for stakeholders, enables impact analysis, promotes consistency and reuse, also improves business or project quality. Okay. So yeah, so like let's imagine a company developing a new mobile app. Okay, so during the project, the requirements are elicited from stakeholders. Okay, so for example, you're looking at secure login or fund transfer. Now, as the BA, you now trace this requirement to security standards and design specifications. Okay, so as things change, you now try to reprioritize features like mobile check deposit instead of, okay, you're now looking at what will give me value. Okay, so now in all of a sudden a new regulation comes in, and you as the BA, you now assess how it affects what you guys are doing, because we've prioritized things, we've traced and stuff. So finally, you also have to, whenever you must have changed anything, you now try to, get your buy-in. That is, you get your like buy-in or approval from your stakeholders. Okay. So after this, we are just going to go into the first one, which is the trace requirements. And I hope to see you then. Thank you. Bye.